Hello, my name is Emma, and in today's video, I am going to teach you some great expressions we use when we talk about our coworkers. We can also use the word colleagues. Okay, so you're going to learn some great expressions. So when you go to work, or when somebody's talking to you about work, you'll be able to use some good expressions that are very popular. So let's get started. First thing I want to maybe remind you or tell you is what the word coworker means. A coworker is somebody you work with. So it's not your boss, it's somebody, and not necessarily your friend, but maybe it can be, but it's somebody you see at work and you work with. Now, some people use the word coworker, other people prefer the word colleague, and they mean the same thing. Okay, so you have a choice. You can say my coworker or my colleague. Colleague might be a little bit harder to spell if you're ever doing a writing assignment. So you can always stick with coworker because it's a bit easier. So let's look first at some positive or happy things we can say about our coworkers. So the first expression, and you can remember I have a smiley face because it's a very happy way to describe our coworker. The first expression I want to teach you is go to. Okay, so you've seen the word go as a verb. When we're talking about our go to, we're actually using this as a noun. Okay, so I'll give you a sentence that will help you understand that a little bit better. But first, let's talk about what it means. A go-to is someone who is very reliable. We can rely on them, okay? And they're the most knowledgeable on something. So when we talk about our go-to at work, the go-to is the person we see when we have a question or when we have a problem with something, because we know they are very reliable and very knowledgeable. So the go-to is the first person you talk to when you need help and you have a problem. So here is my example. She, and she in this case is my coworker, she is my go-to when I need help. So notice I put the word my in front of this. So we can have my go-to, your go-to, his go-to, her go-to. And again, it's the person who's the most reliable and most knowledgeable and the person you go to for help. All right, so that's the first way we can describe a coworker. She is my go-to. The next expression also has the word go in it, but this means something very different. We use the term or expression going places to describe coworkers who are probably going to be very successful in the future. So this is a really nice way to describe somebody. If you think a person you work with is going to be very successful, you can say they are going places. So the person will be successful in their career. So maybe right now you both have the same job, but if a person is going places, this means they're going to go very high in their career. They're going to climb the ladder. And you can use it for yourself. I hope I will be going places in the future. So going places means being successful. Here is our example. Alan is going places. Alan is going to be very successful in the future. That's what I think. All right, let's look at some other positive expressions to describe our coworkers. All right, so what's our next positive way to describe our coworker? Well, a really nice thing to say about someone at work is to call them a team player. So it's almost like comparing your coworker to somebody you would play a sport with. You're both on a team, like a sport team. And so a team player is somebody who cares about the other members of your team, or in this case, other coworkers and really helps people out. They're focused on helping everyone out, not just themselves. So what we can say is that a team player is someone who works well with others. Okay, so they're not focused on themselves, they're focused on the team. So here's my example. Shelly is a team player. I love doing projects with her. You can also use this to describe yourself. A lot of people during job interviews will say that they are a team player, meaning they like to work well with others on projects, just like you would if you were an athlete on a sports team. So my next expression is a newer expression, and that is the expression of work wife. We can also say work husband or work spouse. So a spouse is the way you can talk about someone you're married to. So this is a new expression, and what does it mean? Well, a work wife or a work husband or a work spouse is someone who is a coworker that you are very close to. Okay, so this is the person you go to for emotional support at work. When you're having a bad day, this is the person you talk to about your bad day at work. They're someone you trust. So they're a very close friend that's also your coworker. So this is the definition I've put. A work spouse is a coworker who is like your husband or wife because they have a very close and supportive relationship with you. You can tell them anything. But for a work spouse or work wife or work husband, it's not romantic. Okay, so it's not a romantic relationship, it's an emotional relationship. That person is the person there for you at work. So many people love having a work spouse. It makes work a lot more fun and it helps with stress. So this is something people are now talking about. They might say, Lucy is my work wife. She always makes sure that I take a break, and whenever I have problems, Lucy's there for me. Hank is my work husband or work spouse. He is someone I trust and I can go to whenever I have a problem. So this is how we use the word work wife, work husband, or work spouse. Spouse can be for a man or a woman. A work wife is for a woman, and a work husband is how we would describe a male colleague. Now let's look at some other expressions. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the bad things we can say about our colleagues or our coworkers when we describe them. So these are all negative traits. And notice I put a sad face because you don't want to work with these types of people. So the first expression is a common one we use at work, and it's the expression of not pulling his, if it's a man, her, if it's a woman, weight. So not pulling someone's weight. What does it mean? Well, if someone is not pulling their weight, it means they are not working hard at work. And as a result, other people have to work harder. So they're not working hard enough. They're not contributing a lot. So other people are working very hard, adding a lot to the project. Someone who does not pull their weight is not contributing a lot. It's almost like if they weren't there, the project wouldn't be any different because they're not helping. So an example of this is Becky is not pulling her, because Becky's a woman, weight here. She's lazy. So Becky is lazy. She's not working hard. She's not contributing to the project. So we can say Becky is not pulling her weight. Sometimes bosses might tell an employee, You need to pull your weight around here. So what can change is this word. It can be her, his, their, your. So you can change the pronoun here, but the main expression is not pulling his, her, their weight. All right, now let's look at another example that's sort of similar, and that is the word slacker. A slacker, and for some of you this might be a hard word to pronounce because we have an S and an L together. Slacker. A slacker is someone who is very lazy and does not work hard. So if we look at what I've written here, a slacker tries to avoid hard work. So they're the kind of person who, whenever the boss comes to the office, a slacker might hide in the bathroom because they want to avoid hard work. They don't want more work. They will do anything to avoid work. They don't do a lot. They have very little effort. And when they do work, they don't try hard. So their projects are usually, we have another expression in English, half-ass, which means that it's not their full potential. A slacker doesn't work hard and they're quite lazy. So my example sentence is, Michelle is a slacker. And a slacker is a word that is a noun. So notice there's a in front of it. There's an article. How many of you are slackers? Maybe while you're learning a language. Some of you might be slackers. That's okay. I'm not judging. So slacker, it's a good word. Now let's look at some other expressions we can use. All right, so now let's look at some more negative or bad things we can say to describe a coworker. The next expression I really like. What I've written here is two-faced. So if you think about a face, you have a face. And in this case, when we describe somebody, we're talking about two faces. This can help you remember this expression. So someone who is two-faced appears one way when they talk to you, but then they do something differently when they talk to other people. So for example, maybe they tell you, oh, I love you so much, you're fantastic. And then when they talk to other coworkers, they say, that Emma, I don't really like her, she's terrible. Okay, so that's two-faced. So it's someone you cannot trust. What they say is not trustworthy. They talk behind people's backs. So what they say to you that's positive, behind your back, they might say something negative. So to help you remember the word two-faced, pictures are a great way to remember vocabulary. And I am very proud of my art. This is an Emma original. It's almost like a Picasso. So if you notice, half of the face is happy. So imagine your coworker, when they talk to you, they look like this. They look all happy and nice and kind, and you think, wow, what a great person. But really, as soon as your back is turned, they're like this, angry. They talk badly about you. They're mean. They're not nice. So you see two faces, you can remember two-faced. And you can use this expression to talk about other people, not just coworkers, but we use it a lot when we're talking about coworkers because unfortunately, sometimes when you work in an office or at any job, you might meet someone who is two-faced. Here is my example. Watch out. Peter is two-faced. So you can't trust Peter. All right, let's look at our last expression of today. And that expression I really like. I actually am a little bit like this. And that is stress case. Stress case. So notice the word stress. When you have a lot of stress, you're very worried and anxious and you think, oh my goodness, everything's going wrong. What do I do? And you panic. So that's stress. It's that feeling when you don't feel in control. And then we have the word case. So a stress case is a person who panics. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Okay, that's a stress case. Someone who overreacts. So maybe you might know somebody who right before a test, they are a stress case. They're sweating, they're, very nervous, they're very stressed, they're panicking. They are a stress case. So sometimes we talk about our coworkers this way. Maybe you have a coworker who, for example, in my example, Jenny is a stress case. She has called me 18 times since lunch to talk about the project. So in this case, you can tell Jenny is a stress case, so she panics a lot because she has called 18 times to talk about something. So that means there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress. A stress case is somebody who overreacts often. So it's okay if, you're stressed when there's a big project and you feel a bit of stress, but someone who's a stress case always is stressed. Every day they have a lot of panic, and that can make other people feel a lot of stress too. Okay, so stress case. So thank you for watching. We've covered 8 different expressions today. 4 of them very nice things to say, and 4 of them, when you're describing someone and it's a little bit negative. And we've been talking about colleagues or coworkers, which mean the same thing. So I hope you use some of these words. You can try them out in the comments. On YouTube, maybe you can talk about coworkers you have and think about it. The best way to remember words is by thinking about people you know who are like these words, because that will make it really strong in your brain and help you remember better. So thank you for watching. Please visit www.ingvid.com, and there you can actually do a quiz to practice everything you've learned today. You can also subscribe to my channel. There are many expressions to learn in English. I've covered 8 today, but if you want to learn more, come check out and subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of videos about different expressions. Just remember to ring the bell so you know you are actually subscribed. Finally, I know I have a lot to say. Come visit me at www.teacheremma.com, where you can get some free resources on English as well as learn more about me. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.